So we are going to get started making our tacos. We are going to start though by getting our mise en place ready. A mise en place, I've talked about this in previous programs. It's just getting everything in place. I want to have all my vegetables chopped, everything in order. So when it comes time to put it all together, we're just mixing everything up. So I'm going to start with my spice blend for our tacos. I should say what we're making. We're making tacos, but we're going to be making a filling with a custom spice blend. We're going to be making the matzo meal tortillas. We are going to be making a Pico De Gallo salsa, and we are going to be making a fancy guacamole. It has been inspired by, I think, oh no, who's the singer? John Mayer. John Mayer has a very specific guacamole recipe that he requires in his green rooms, and I have copied it. Okay. So here is my spice blend. I'm going to put everything in a jar. I'm going to just shake it all up. Normally when it's not Pesach, I just buy like the Toll House taco seasoning, but we are going to make our own. So I've got 1 tablespoon of chili powder. 1.5 teaspoons of cumin. I've got in here 1/2 teaspoon of garlic powder and 1/2 teaspoon of chili flakes. You can use less chili flakes. I just like spice. And then 1/2 teaspoon of paprika. You can use smoked paprika, would be really nice. And 1/2 teaspoon of oregano. This is all on the recipe card that I emailed you guys. And then I've got a teaspoon of kosher salt. Where do I get my kosher spices? Selection is very limited. This Sobeys and Metro is a good combination of places to go to. And if you're missing any of these ingredients, it's fine. Honestly, salt and pepper and paprika would do. I'm just adding a little extra kick to everything. So here I've got a teaspoon of salt and 1/2 teaspoon of black pepper. My go-to spice blend, if I can't find things, and I'll put this on chicken or whatever, is salt, pepper, garlic powder, and paprika. It's more than enough seasoning, especially because we're putting all this other stuff onto our, hello dog, onto our tacos. So shake that up. And now I've got my seasoning mix. I'm going to set that aside. I'm going to get the veggies ready for all of our condiments. So, hello everybody joining us right now. I'm going to start off with the Pico De Gallo. So for that one, I've got 3 tomatoes. I know the recipe said 6, but there's only 2 humans in my house who are eating this. So I'm cutting it in half. I've got 3 Roma tomatoes. When making salsa, I know people probably think you want to go for a really juicy tomato. You actually want to go for one that isn't, because that's mostly just like water. So I'm going with sort of hard Roma tomatoes. I've got white onion. I'm going to use 1/4 of it. And I've got jalapenos, cilantro, and lime. I'm going to start off with my quick little knife safety lesson that I always like to give everyone because I get stressed out being responsible for people and their knives. The safest knife you can have is a sharp knife because it won't roll off the things that you are cutting. And when we are cutting together, just remember we're going to tuck our fingers in, because if my fingers are tucked in, I can't cut them off. So I'm going to cut my tomatoes into a dice. See, these are actually pretty juicy. Shoot. One of my jobs while I was in university was as a prep cook, and I would spend the entire day cutting tomatoes, and it was a terrible, terrible job because apparently tomatoes are super acidic and will leave your hands looking really gross. So happy to be working back there because I'm not in the kitchen anymore. So they don't need to be beautiful. I'm doing a rough chop. And in fact, I think just because of the amount of people that will be eating this in my house, I'm going to just do 2 tomatoes, and I'm going to save another one for guacamole. Doris, can you slide through, or how are people doing cooking with me so far?
I think they're doing great. There was one question, but you answered it. It's where do you get your Passover spices? My selection is very limited. So.
I'm not going to use that last tomato. And I'm just going to put my ingredients on a plate. You know what? That's so silly of me. I'm going to put them right in my mixing bowl. This one.
So I'm not a Rebbitzin by any means, but I wondered if you bought your spices before Passover and they weren't opened until Passover, could you still use them for Passover? So that's an interesting question for us to ask maybe and find out.
That was my understanding because I asked Rabbi Lewis actually about asking people to buy their ingredients in advance for this. And he said, as long as it's unopened before Pesach, it's still Pesach.
Yeah, so that was my thinking. So that it's always good to change our spices probably once a year at least. So maybe that's the time of year we think about changing them and buying fresh spice and opening them for Pesach and then having them.
Yeah, it's actually good. It's a good point. That is a good time to sort of change your spices over. I cleaned out my cupboards and I have spices that my sister bought for me when she was in Thailand 12 years ago. So they're not good anymore. So I'm cutting up my white onion. I've cut it in half and I've taken the skin off, and just to make a fine dice, because this is a fairly strong flavor, I'm going to begin by cutting across this way as many times as I can without cutting myself. And then I'm going to cut again down the length of the onion, and then I can make a really quick dice. Has anyone here ever heard of Essigfleisch? You can raise your hand if you've done that. It's just multiple meats mushed together. It might just be my husband's Bubby's made up recipe, but she taught me how to make it once, and it's a family favorite. She told me to dice the onions, and the biggest compliment I've ever gotten was Bubby saying that I dice a beautiful onion. I was very proud of myself. Okay. So I've got my nice finely chopped onion.
You are a great chopper.
Thank you.
Ellie, if somebody was going out to buy a new knife, what knife would you recommend?
Okay, great question. I have this Willig knife block, which I love. This knife, I got at Kitchen Stuff Plus for $10. It is the same knife that I used when I worked in a professional kitchen, and I've had it for 10 years and I love it. And I take good care of it, and I don't let it go in the dishwasher, and I don't let it sit in a wet sink, and I sharpen it frequently. But a good knife doesn't have to be expensive.
Thank you.
Okay, so I've got my onion. I'm going to put half of it in my mixing bowl because I don't need a very oniony pico. And I'm going to save some more for another part of the recipe. Next, we're going to tackle our jalapenos. We don't want the seeds unless you want a really spicy salsa. Again, my family doesn't do spice. That's just me. So we're going to cut out the seeds. Once you do this, make sure you don't touch your little eyeballs. I'm going to use a smaller knife actually just to take these out. And then once again, we're going to cut it really small dice. It's more to add flavor than heat. So I've got my empty jalapeno. And again, I'm going to do a very small dice. And you may want to save a little bit if you like a little spice in your guacamole. I'm using this just in the Pico De Gallo for today. And cilantro is a very polarizing ingredient. I know for half of the world it tastes like soap. It does not taste like soap to me, so I am going to give it a chop. I just have a small handful here, probably a quarter of a cup.
Ellie, would you recommend washing your hands after you slice that jalapeno?
I would. I probably should have. But yes, especially if you did touch the seeds. I was careful to try to avoid, but I also wear contact lenses, so I try really hard not to touch my eyeballs in general. So in my bowl here, I now have 2 tomatoes. I have about 1/4 of an onion. I have half a jalapeno seeded, and I have a little handful of cilantro. I know I said we're going to do a mise en place, but this is basically done. So I'm going to finish up this salsa right here. I'm going to squeeze in half a lime. And just a little trick. I'm going to put my fork in it. And I'm going to use that to make sure I get lots and lots of juice.
Ellie, how do you keep your cilantro fresh? Often people buy cilantro, they use a tablespoon or a couple of tablespoons, and then they'd like to keep it to use for another recipe, maybe later in the week, and somehow it tends to wilt. So how would you recommend keeping it fresh?
So I don't. What I do is actually I'll chop it, and I do this with green onions, dill, and parsley as well. I'll chop it and I'll actually put it in like an empty water bottle, and I put it in the freezer, and then it's just ready to go. You can sprinkle it.
So
yeah.
you're recommending to freeze it, chop it, freeze it, and then just take out what you need.
Exactly. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. So I'm adding just a little bit of salt and a little bit of pepper. You should salt everything. Even if a recipe doesn't call for salt, you should always salt it. Even if you're making a sandwich and there's a slice of tomato on it, you should salt the tomato. So we're only like 10 minutes in and we've already made 2 components of our meal. We're doing well. So this, everybody, is our Pico De Gallo. And now we're going to get the vegetables ready for our guacamole. So I prefer a red onion in my guacamole as opposed to the white. You can do whatever you prefer. I'm just going to do a little bit because I like my guacamole to be mainly avocado, especially because we already have onion and tomato and cilantro and everything in the Pico De Gallo. We don't really need to add that much there. I'm just going to let, hi, Auntie Francis. So this I wrap my herbs in a paper towel and then into a plastic bag that stays for 3 weeks. That's such a good tip, Rita. Thank you. So I'm going to give, I have like less than 1/4 of a red onion. I'm giving it a fine chop, or a fine dice rather. And again, so for your guacamole, you could add jalapeno from before, you could add cilantro. I'm not adding either of those things. I'm going a little rogue and not doing a traditional guacamole. So I've got my red onion. I'm adding a little bit of tomato that I didn't use for the Pico De Gallo. Again, just a dice. And now I'm going to add 1 clove of garlic. So if you have a nice big knife like mine, or you could use your hand, I like to smash it and that gets the skin off. And it sort of flattens it and makes it easier to mince. Another way to get a nice fine mince is to use a cheese grater. And that'll get you nice small bits of garlic, because no one wants a giant bite of garlic. How are my fellow cooks doing? Okay. I think we're all okay. So I have 2 ripe avocados. I'm going to show you one way to cut it, which is what I do, but it's also how my husband got stitches. I'm going to show you the secret. Huh. I don't know if you know that story. So the one way to do it, which I find really quick, is we cut it in half. And of course we stop at the pit. And I have one avocado that's good to go. Oh, the pit's so small, I can't really teach you. But I put my knife in and I twist and then it comes off.
Oh, neat. Thanks.
I don't know what Evan did, but he was at the hospital when he tried that.
Oy.
So the other way, this is the Chrissy Teigen method, is you cut it in half again. You twist. And then you just peel the skin off.
Oh, that works.
That worked way easier than I thought it was going to. These are
Yeah.
just like good avocados. And so then hypothetically, this is so messy. See, this is where Joey got it from. Then hypothetically, you would cut around it. You should be able to get your pieces off. Chrissy Teigen, you led me astray. I like my way more. Either way.
I just take a spoon to take off the pit.
And you just scoop it out?
Yeah.
No, but where's the danger in that, Lillian?
None.
You like hack it with a knife. Well, I tried both ways. So I'm gonna scoop it out. I should be using a spoon though, but I have a fork handy.
There.
So I've got that all out. The John Mayer recipe actually includes the pit chopped up. I shan't do that. Okay. So I'm gonna mash this up. It doesn't have to be perfectly smooth. You can make a chunky guacamole. And we're going to add our minced vegetables, our diced vegetables.
Ellie,
Yeah.
if you're not serving your guacamole immediately, would you put the pit of the avocado into the guacamole so it won't turn brown?
No, I've never heard that actually. We're going to add a little bit of acid, which is going to help slow down the browning. But if you're using it later, what you would do is, or what I do rather, is I put saran wrap and then I make sure the saran wrap's touching it so that no air gets to it.
Got it. Thank you.
The air that turns it brown. So once again, I'm going to add a little bit of lime juice because it needs some acidity. It's kind of flat right now. I'm going to do half a lime. Oh my gosh, nothing came out of that.
Oh,
Literally no juice in it. I don't think it's lime season in Toronto. There we go. You just have to force it. And then I'm going to add some salt and some pepper. And then I like to finish it with a little sprinkle of chili powder. That's why I didn't add my jalapenos. Also, it looks pretty when you're serving it to a crowd one day when you serve guacamole to a crowd again.
What did you just add, Ellie?
That was the chili powder.
Oh, okay.
I know originally when I was telling some people about this class, I was asked about different options for fillings because today we're about to get to it. I'm going to be doing a meat filling, but you could do this completely vegetarian. You could use tofu, which is now kosher for Pesach. But what I do, and I have a little example here, I like to just cook up some corn and black beans and some peppers and onions, and I sprinkle it with my seasoning mix, and that's my filling. So to anybody who wants to cook along with us and is like, oh, I really don't feel like cooking a cow today, that's an option. Another option is we can slice some turkey breasts or chicken breast rather. But what I'm going to do now is get my minced beef out of the fridge, and we're going to make our filling. And the last thing we're going to do is our tortillas. Come with me, computer.
that's what I'm waiting for, because I make the taco filling the same way as you do, but I don't know how to make the tortillas for Pesach.
I feel like that's the thing that people are like, That's not gonna work. What are we doing?
Oh, I
Tibby
think
asked-
it'll work.
Tibby asked me if we were just gonna like soak matzah and fold it in half. I'm like, that's a little gnarly. We could try, but no. So instead, it's the quickest way. It's the quickest filling. I'm putting my frying pan on medium heat. Here's a light for you guys. And I'm adding just a little bit of olive oil. That's about a tablespoon. And once my pan gets hot, I am going to add in my filling of choice. Again, I'm doing lean ground beef, but I've done this with chicken, I've done this with tofu. You could do it with just black beans and corn or sliced chicken. Can you tell I shopped at Costco when I had to divide my meat into small bags? It's like a 5-pound thing of meat. So we are going to break up the meat. And we want to cook it until it's no longer pink and the juices are running clear. And at that point, we're going to add in our seasoning mix that we made. I'm going to add in the entire thing of seasoning. If you wanted to enhance this again, yeah? Is there a question? No, okay. Yeah, so if you want to enhance this, you could add some cooked onions and peppers like I did. You could make it like a looser filling by adding some salsa to it. But I'm just keeping this very simple today and doing my seasoning. I'm going to flip through and see if I can see anybody cooking with me. Oh, another thing you could do instead is just use your brisket from last night. Brisket taco, there's nothing wrong with that. There's a chat. Ground turkey would definitely work in this recipe. I would just be cautious to not let it dry out. I would maybe add a little bit more oil to the pan. So this is cooking fairly quickly. I'm just trying to be very cautious to not let anything burn, mostly because my smoke detector is very sensitive and I have a sleeping toddler. We have someone in. Also, you don't want your food to burn. Okay, I'm also making sure to break it up as I go. If I was doing sliced chicken, I would probably season it first. Because once you cook the chicken, you can't really season it. So this is mostly cooked. Ellie, could you please repeat what you have in the pan? Absolutely, this is just meat. Meat, and I had a little bit of olive oil to make sure it didn't stick.
So Ellie, you're gonna add the spices when it's almost done or almost, okay.
Yeah, so it's almost done. I don't know if you can tell how good my lighting is. There's just a few spots of pink. And so that's when I want to add my seasoning. Because again, like I said about the chicken, once things are completely cooked, it's sort of hard to season. It's like when you're cooking a soup, you add the salt while it's cooking. You don't want to hope for the best. Okay, so I'm adding, I added half of my seasoning mix in the end. It looked like a lot. And I'm going to stir it up. It smells as Mexican as I'm going to get. Little Lithuanian Jew.
Ellie, the recipe calls for 1 pound ground chicken, 1 pound ground beef. Is that what you're using, or you're only using 1 pound, not 2 pounds?
Sorry, it was 1 pound of either or.
Ah, okay, okay.
So I have 1 pound of ground beef. And I lied. Now that it's all in there, I'm going to add the rest of my seasoning mix. So everything is combined. I also usually tell people not to move around their food this much, but with meat, I just wanted to make sure that it's completely cooked. So that's it. I'm going to let this just sit on a very low flame just to finish cooking any bits that I missed. And now we are going to make matzo tortillas, everybody.
Yay.
Come with me on this adventure. We will see how it goes. Okay. So really, it's very few ingredients. We need matzo meal, oil, I'm using olive oil, warm water, and salt. Oh wait, I saw someone post on Facebook that she had all this matzo ball mix. If anyone wants matzo balls, come on down. She was just holding up this. So I don't know what she made, but they probably weren't great. But anyway, that's just me judging other cooks. Okay, so we've got 2 cups of matzo meal. Oh. 2 pounds of matzo meal, 2 cups rather. I'm going to add 1 tablespoon of kosher salt. When cooking, we use kosher salt. When seasoning at the table, we use table salt. Just my tip that nobody asked for.
It's a good tip. Thank you.
Table salt is like, it will over season. So I've got that. I'm just going to quickly mix that up so that the salt gets incorporated before I add in all my wet. Okay. I'm going to get warm water, 1 cup of warm water.
Ellie, what would you use sea salt for? Would you cook with sea salt? Or would you cook with sea salt? Or would sea salt be more of a seasoning salt?
It's a finishing salt, I would say. Yeah.
Finishing salt? Thank
you. Yeah, because it adds a very specific flavor.
Huh. Okay, thanks.
Okay. So I'm adding my 1 cup of warm water and 1 tablespoon of oil. I'm going to start mixing this with a fork, but I'm going to finish it off with my hands. Just make sure everything's incorporated.
I'm wondering if Neil or Lauren have any tips on when they were making their tortillas tonight.
Oh, sorry, I just got a direct message. What other dry ingredients did I put in the bowl just now, Barbara? It's just the salt and the matzo. And yes, Neil, any tips before I dive into this?
Any tips? Well, so I'm just moving off to the side as I'm working the meat here. It was definitely challenging rolling the shells. They don't.
Because you have enough.
They don't act like I guess
That's a you
shells would be normally. We added a little more water as we went along with it, just because it needed it. A little more oil as well too.
Okay.
Did that come through?
Let's see how we do on our end here then.
Okay.
But now I'm mentally prepared for a challenge.
Go
Okay,
back.
so I have everything combined. And it's definitely a dry dough. But what we're going to do to make the rolling out a little bit easier is I'm going to use 2 pieces of parchment paper. Make sure I don't have any questions.
Could you use cake meal instead of matzah meal?
You certainly can, yeah. That would almost be easier because it's a finer crumb. So when people actually make tortillas, they use the tortilla press. So they don't roll it out, they like smush it. So I want to try 2 methods. I want to try rolling it out and then I want to try smushing. We'll see which is the most effective. So I'm going to take.
Last time Arlene gave us some good tips on how to, instead of rolling it, to smush it. And it came, whatever we were making, I forget what it was, Arlene. It came out terrific. Yes, the hamantaschen came out terrific.
Might be the preferred method. So I'm going to try one. So what I do, it would be helpful if you could see what I'm doing. I've got it between my 2 sheets of parchment. And we're going to roll it out. Is it a round tortilla? No. Maybe I should cut it into one. Okay. Nice flat tortilla. But because I'm crazy, I'm going to cut this into the shape of a circle because this is going to drive me nuts. Okay. Okay, I don't think I'm trying the smushing method. Well, I will just for science. Thank you, Joey Cereal. So here's 1 tortilla. And now let's try to smush. So once again, I'm going to take a ball of our dough. I'm going to put it between the 2 pieces of parchment. And I'm going to take the pan that we're going to cook it with and I'm going to smush. I think that worked too. It's a little thicker than I want. So I'm going to cheat and use my rolling pin a little bit. Okay. We have 2 tortillas. I'm going to do 2 more quick ones because I have a ton of dough here. And I think this is a great time if anyone has any questions. I am here.
No questions right now, but Ellie, do you think halving the recipe would be okay instead of 2 cups, maybe using a cup, like, and you'd probably get maybe 6 out of it?
Yeah, I mean, we don't want to be wasteful. And as long as you have every part of the recipe, it's going to work just fine.
Okay.
Because as it is, I think like I'm going to get 10 tortillas out of this. I will make you watch me make 10 tortillas. Okay. So after this, we are going to cook them on a very hot pan. delicate.
Oh, I think Rona is actually cooking with you, actually.
Yay, Rona!
Yeah, I see her olive oil, so
How's it going, Rona?
you can unmute Rona. Or I can unmute you if you like. If I could.
Okay. So I'm heating up another pan here. This one I'm using a non-stick because I am very scared of these burning. I'm not putting any oil. This is just going to be dry heat. Can you make a blintz dough and drop it into the fry pan and roll it thin in the fry pan? Yeah, why not? I thought my blintz dough is mostly egg. So I don't know, it might not have the same, it'll taste like a Mexican blintz more than it'll taste like a taco. But you can totally do it. I am just cleaning up my little workstation here while that heats up. Okay. So I have a nice hot pan. Gonna make it even hotter. And here goes nothing. Oh. I don't know what I'm waiting for. I just want it to be cooked. Neil, any tips?
Ellie, how did you know not to use any oil in the pan? Like, I think a natural instinct would you'd want to use some oil or something. So why did?
Excessive watching of Food Network.
Okay, thanks. I'm not watching enough Food Network.
Yeah.
Yes, Ellie, we're
I know that tortillas are generally made on
Neil is showing us his pan.
so there's our shells.
A lot of spotlight.
right?
Yeah, there's some more shells that are done. And the meat is all spiced and just cooling on the, not cooling, but not getting overcooked.
How did you know when to flip yours?
How do we know what to flip ours?
Guess?
I just flip them. They start to look a little bit brown. And they start to be like harder instead of soft and mushy.
Do they actually fold, Lauren? Like, do you think they're going to fold into a taco, or you're going to eat it more like a flat pancake with your food on
here.
top?
Here's one. Here's a sample. So yeah, it'll kind of fold.
Okay.
It's more like a street taco.
I think if it breaks, it'll break on the plate, and then it just becomes taco salad.
So I'm actually not cooking mine until it's crispy, Doris. I'm cooking mine until it's like a flour tortilla. So it's still bendable.
Firm, it's not.
Where did this come from? You want me to put this away?
Just a little bit of guesswork.
So do you have it on a low heat, honey?
I actually have it on a quite high heat. I have it as high as I can go. Because tortillas traditionally are made over like fire. I'm flipping them just because I'm very scared of burning. I don't think you're supposed to flip them this much, guys. Oh, I'm gonna let. Okay. I think she's done. All right. Coming back over this way, we are going to assemble. Okay. I have my little baby tortilla shell.
Oh, nice.
I am going to start with a little bit of the guac. I should have made bigger tortilla shells. I thought these would be cute. a little bit of the Pico De Gallo. And I have some other condiments here. So you can see my garbage pile. But here, as I was saying, these are just some cooked onions and peppers. I have shredded lettuce just so that we can pretend that we're healthy, everybody. And this is a corn salsa. It's corn, jalapenos, lime, onions, cilantro. That is from the Chipotle recipe book from the restaurant Chipotle. Okay. And here's my little taco.
Oh, perfect.
So it works. I'll try it. It has no right to taste this good. It's mozza, but it's actually really tasty. Lauren, have you tried a birthday taco yet? Oh, spicy. I'm very happy right now.
Is Evan going to get to have some?
Evan was only given a bowl of soup tonight, so I think he's hoping to get some tacos. I'm gonna make more tortillas.
So Barbara is asking, she says, excellent, I'm impressed. Does it taste like Pesach?
It doesn't taste like Pesach. Maybe because I think the trick is, I think I just had a bite of jalapeno, only jalapeno. If you make your tortillas thin enough, and I'll show you how thin it is. You're mostly tasting your fillings. Here, wait. No, that tastes like a tortilla. I highly recommend. No more making these matzo meal bagels, everybody. Matzo meal
Very
tortilla.
nice, very nice.
That's it. That is our Taco Tuesday. Does anybody have any more questions before we end our little cooking class?
If you want,
I have a couple of questions. Can we put less salt in?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Your tortillas are beautiful and your condiments are amazing. Good job.
Thank you.
Great job.
Yeah, really, really good. Thank you, Ellie. Thank you. so
Pleasure
much.
watching you, Ellie. You are so organized.
Thank you.
Oh.
That was fun.
I don't know who said that, but thank you so much. I'm going to put this in gallery.
thank you.
Oh, what will your next cooking class be? Or your next painting class?
Susan. We don't have a painting class in the books. I know Gail's actually organized a cooking class with an actual chef. And I believe that's for Yom Ha'atzmaut. And then I think I will come back for Shavuot to do some dairy baking with everybody.
There is
good.
another question. Can we make them bigger? So I'm assuming they're asking, can they make the tortillas bigger?
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely. I made them small strictly because I thought it would look cuter on Instagram.
Okay.
But you can make a big burrito.
And many people are looking forward to making them tomorrow. And thank you so much. You're an inspiration. to
Thank you.
all people.
Thank you so much, you guys.
It was
Pastor
great.
Bea,
Thank you.
if you make it, please be sure to send me pictures. People already have, and the Weisbergers looked way nicer than mine. So please send me pictures and I will share. Thank you so much, everybody. We will
Thank
see
you.
you at our next program.
Thank you, Ellie.
Chag Sameach.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.